AI is everywhere these days, and this season it's coming to FPL as well. In this video, I'm going to be exploring whether that's a good thing, whether AI is capable of helping and assisting managers in doing better in FPL, whether it's smart enough to do so, or whether it's just going to get in the way of FPL managers' decision making. Hey everyone, Sam here, otherwise known as FPL Pricey, and in today's video, it's going to be a little bit different to normal. No stats, nothing like that. It's going to just be an open discussion on the use of AI in FPL. I think we've seen this coming for a while now. We've had models and algorithms for a long time, and data has been a fundamental part of the FPL decision-making process for a number of seasons now. So the next logical step was whether or not AI can get involved in FPL in some way and assist managers in making better decisions. Now, with the news that the Premier League has teamed up with Microsoft, which came out a couple of days ago, the press release is on screen now. Managers were, or the eagle-eyed managers, I suppose, were able to have a quick scroll through and see one very important part, which is that Microsoft AI, that's effectively Copilot, which is their AI tool, is going to be included in the fantasy football experience. As you can see in the bottom section here on the right-hand side, Microsoft AI will be included within the app and the website's enhanced FPL experience, giving every fan their own personal assistant manager to help them steer their fantasy squad to victory. Now, that is the crucial element of this press release. Basically, what it means is that we're all going to have an assistant manager embedded into the FPL app and on the website for all 12, 13, however many million managers there are in the game. And it's a bit of a leveler, really, because in the past, a lot of us, especially those of you who might watch these videos, have been looking at data, been absorbing content, and used that possibly as a way to gain an advantage over the crowd. And although the FPL content is getting really popular, it's still only maybe a fraction of the player base that use FPL content, whether that's looking at articles, looking at data, and data could be something as simple as how many goals, how many assists a player's got, by the way. But even that is a small advantage over some managers who basically just log in once a week, not even that much often, and just make their transfer maybe every few weeks and they forget FPL exists. Now those managers are going to have an assistant manager within the app itself, basically advising on what moves you're going to want to make. And there's a lot of panic about this in the FPL community that I've seen. So I wanted to make a quick video just summarizing my thoughts on it, whether or not it's actually going to be any good, which I think is a key question here, and whether it is indeed a bit of a leveler, or if it just takes the fun out of FPL. If an assistant manager built by AI is capable of, I suppose, making decisions for us, what's even the point in playing the game? So first up, let's have a look at something else which I think is really important for context. FPL Focal did a bit more digging into this, and the assistant manager, the FPL AI Assistant, basically it's been trained on quite a lot of data. So in this section, I'm going to go through whether I think it's going to be any good. FPL Focal has done the digging here. It's trained on 30 seasons of FPL statistics. You'd imagine that's things like goals, assists, appearances, minutes, that sort of thing. 9,000 videos, so it might even include my videos, although I'm fairly small, so maybe not, maybe the bigger guys. So 9,000 videos and 300,000 articles. Now, that will be across Scout, Hub, Fix, all sorts of articles over the last few seasons. So when it arrives later in the season, and it won't be to begin with, or it's coming at some point later in the year, it's going to be able to make advice or create advice based on all of that data. So a lot of people think that that means it's probably going to be pretty good. I'm actually going to contest that, and I'm going to kind of die on this hill until I see the tool itself, but I'm pretty convinced that it's not going to be much good. So I'm not that panicked about this, even though it's trained on all of this data. The difference between an AI model and something like a FPL review, for instance, if you use that, some data-led models, the data-led models are based on real-time data and statistics. So things like underlying XG, underlying XA from the most recent game weeks. So for AI to be able to compete with that, it needs to be live updating. I'm not sure it's doing that based on this context. It looks like it's kind of peeling through all of the old data, not necessarily anything new. But then also, more crucially, this doesn't mention anything about market data. Now, the models are good, and even they're controversial, by the way. A lot of people don't like using the models, but the models are seen to be much more accurate because it also has a look at real-time market odds and market data. And what that means is it's able to react to little trends game week by game week. So let's say Isaac was an injury doubt going into game week 10. The market data is going to probably reflect that in the expected goals that you'd assume Newcastle are able to get, maybe the expected clean sheets of the opposite team, so any defenders in that team, but then also the expected minutes of Isaac come down a little bit, and the models are capable of recognizing that and reflecting that in the transfers that they're suggesting, I suppose. And also, just anecdotally, even removing models from the equation here, you as an FPL manager can see that Isak's a doubt, and therefore you might change your decision making based on that. These AI models, the assistant manager, the way I think it's going to go is basically, okay, this player has scored a lot of points in the last few game weeks. I'm going to recommend him to you because he's within your budget and you've got an injured centre forward. So let's say, I don't know, Gyökeres signs for Arsenal, he gets injured, and you can make a quick move over to Isak. The AI model, as long as there's no flag on the player in FPL, will just see it as a fit player and recommend signing. So I think any managers out there who don't do the extra research and maybe aren't plugged in to the FPL community or the models or just talking to people about what's going on in real time, they're going to see that, say, yeah, okay, Isak's doing really well, I'm going to buy him, and then he's an injury doubt going into the game week without them even knowing about it. And the AI tool, I don't think, is going to be that quick to recognize those little changes. Whereas models and even you as an FPL manager with your eye test and just through hearing what's going on will have that data. So yes, I think the AI in FPL is going to be decent. It's going to be a bit of a leveler for those managers who, to be frank, just don't watch FPL content or don't watch the Premier League that much. It's your mate in a mini league that logs in once or twice a week, or maybe gets bored halfway through the season. Usually it's going to be a bit of a leveler for them because it's going to start recommending players based on articles and videos and statistics rather than them just saying, oh, I've heard of that player, so I'm going to buy them. So they're probably the floor is going to be raised a little bit, I suppose, on the average score of FPL managers across the community or across the entire player base. But I actually think that this AI model will give the more invested managers even more of an advantage over everyone else who uses the model, because it means that they're going to be sometimes, not every week, but sometimes given very limited data that doesn't reflect what's actually going on. And I don't know if you've ever tried this, but I would recommend you go and do this right now. Go into ChatGPT or any other AI model right now and ask it to pick you a game week 1 FPL side and just see what it spits out, because I have never once, and just as a joke, I've done it recently, I've never once been given a team that I'd even be half happy with. They're always missing context. It's always missing something because it's trained on things that might be slightly out of date, I suppose. Articles that might no longer be relevant, statistics which might no longer be relevant. Sometimes it doesn't even pick a player that's even in the league anymore. I think it picked Rafinha for me not too long ago for Leeds, who obviously Leeds are back in the Premier League, so it's looking through data and it's like, oh, in the most recent article I can find on Leeds about the Premier League, Rafinha was playing. Well, that's no longer the case, obviously. So I think any AI assistant is going to need to be reflective of market data more than anything else. And it doesn't say anything about this in the press release. So I think personally, it's going to be a bit of a leveler. It will be helpful for managers who maybe aren't that invested. But as a fairly engaged manager, which if you're watching this, you are probably as well, I think it actually gives us a little bit more of an advantage because other managers are going to use this as a way to shortcut everything else. They don't need to think, they don't need to do the extra research. They'll just say, well, this AI model is recommending I buy a player, so I'm going to do it without doing the extra research required. And I think at least 2 or 3 times a season, that's going to bite them because the player's going to be injured, or there's going to be a double game week that's announced 24 hours before a deadline and they've already made their move. All of these little things that can happen game week to game week, and you know, because you've seen it a million times yourself as well, I'm sure, little things can happen which completely change your decision making for the upcoming game week. And I just don't think an AI model is going to be able to react and reflect that in the suggestions. Now, obviously, it's a contentious subject, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this as well. So let me know in the comments below whether or not you think the AI model is going to be any good. And I suppose one point that I haven't really gotten into in this section is whether or not it is right to include AI in FPL. Because if it does get to a point that I don't think it's at yet, but when it does get to this point, or if it ever gets to a point where it's good enough to make decisions for you, is that just removing the fun from FPL? Does that just make us as FPL managers a bit redundant? Does it put me out of a job with FPL content as well? Maybe, possibly. But I think most of the fun of FPL is actually making the decision yourself. So if an AI manager is effectively telling you what to do every week, is that good? Like, I, as much as anyone else, like getting opinions, but I would never want something to just do it for me. I like looking at things like review and different models, but if it was something that is actually physically making the transfers for me and saying, no, you need to be doing this, and then doing it, then what's the point in me even playing in the first place? So let me know in the comments below what you think of that. I think it will be a little bit of an advisory thing to begin with that isn't making decisions for people, but it will suggest a transfer. And I think those least engaged managers will probably take that suggestion, and once or twice a season it might bite them. And I think that's where the advantage lies for the engaged managers. But let me know in the comments below what you think of the tool, whether or not you think it's any good, and whether you think it's right to include it in FPL. So another AI feature that's being introduced into FPL this season is the ability to create and generate custom kits and team badges, which obviously in the past that was fairly limited. This season, Adobe is coming into FPL and they're giving you the opportunity to generate from a prompt custom logos, custom team kits. So a lot more creative freedom there. So it's not really changing FPL as a game, but it does give you a little bit more freedom. It also looks from the graphics as well like you might be able to generate other social templates. So if you make a transfer, you might be able to create a little picture or image that you generate through Adobe, through the FPL app or website, and to share it on social media. So possibly a little bit gimmicky, but it might be fun for some of you. I wanted to mention it as another factor in the AI takeover of FPL. I don't think it will affect things in the same way that Copilot might affect the decision making for managers, but it is something that might be a little bit interesting. Now, again, let me know what you think of this. I played Call of Duty as a kid, so I can tell you, if you give people the ability to generate custom logos, people are going to make, let's say, interesting badges. So it will be interesting to see what the safeguarding is around this, whether or not people are going to maybe get a little bit in trouble if they create certain looking badges through a generated prompt. I would imagine that Adobe will limit this so that you can't create anything too vulgar. But just a heads up, if you're looking at this thinking, I could have some fun with this, I could be a bit cheeky, I do wonder if they're going to maybe place bans on players if you do anything too vulgar, because we've seen team names in the past get banned. So just a heads up, if you do anything too crazy, I don't know for sure, but I'd suggest that people could get maybe told off, and maybe FPL has a look into some of them. So we'll see on that one. I probably won't be playing with this too much in either sense. I'll probably just do my standard red and white stripes and the Southampton logo. It's what I always do. I don't really spend much time on this. But if you enjoy this sort of thing, then fair enough. I personally think that removing the creativity from creative people is generally a bad thing. So I'm not against this necessarily, but anything that auto generates something, I'm I'm not completely anti it, but I would always prefer to use a human being. So thumbnail design, for instance, I go to a specific person, Alex Volo, who is absolutely fantastic, and he creates me a really quite brilliant thumbnail every single week. If I was to use an AI generator model for my thumbnails, which are available, I just don't think it gives me that same sort of flexibility. It feels a little bit heartless, and I don't enjoy it in the same way. And I've got a little bit of that feeling about this element as well. I'm not massively anti it, but if you're creating team badges and team kits through the generator, I don't think there's that much harm in it in this game, because the alternative was only to do it through a list of like 5 or 6 options, and it's not really taking a job away from the creatives in this aspect. But anyway, let me know what you think of these two features, whether or not you like the idea of creating custom logos, custom team kits, or whether you just think it's a little bit gimmicky and you're probably not going to touch it. I'm probably not going to touch it, but it might be interesting to some of you. So again, I thought I'd mention it. Anyway, as we get to the end of the video, let me know your overall thoughts on AI in FPL, whether or not you're worried about it or whether or not you're embracing it. As always, if you could leave a like and hit subscribe, that'd be greatly appreciated. It massively helps me out. And make sure you hit that notification bell, because I'm posting pretty much daily from the start of the FPL Pre-Season. That's when the game launches. You don't want to miss out on too much of that content, so hit that bell and you'll always get a notification for it as well. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.